Well, this is 35 millimeter pristine negative that we found in storage about 3 or 4 years ago. The most important thing to remember is that we only found film negative. There's no sound, so in a lot of cases we really don't know what anyone's saying. Everything here is, with the exception of the helicopter material, is shot by John Palmer. The helicopter material was shot by Bob Margolef.
How did you get a helicopter anyway?
Well, there actually was a helicopter pad at the top of the Pan Am building at that time, so one could take a helicopter out to Kennedy or LaGuardia Airport. I think it was only Kennedy, but you could rent a helicopter and put a wear-all mount in it and hang out of it and shoot. A lot of vibration, but generally maybe 10%, 15% of the footage was actually glorious. It's a different Manhattan. It's much more sparse, not as much glass and steel, much more concrete, much more remnants of the post-World War era. Now, of course, one of the reasons why we went into the helicopter footage was to shoot the Be-In, to shoot Central Park on Easter Sunday, 1967, when word was that there would be a spontaneous happening, a gathering of the tribes, if you will, of the young flower power-oriented, pot-smoking, anti-war, rock and roll and sex generation that was causing a lot of friction to the power structure in New York at this time. It was generally considered us and them, and anyone who was young and had painted faces and scraggly hair was really very suspect.
So the idea was to bring cast members into the Be-In and film them.
Well, really, it was much more spontaneous that we were going to go and shoot footage of Edie and Paul on Easter Sunday. And as Easter Sunday, the week as Easter Sunday approached, we realized that, Ginsberg said, "Listen, be prepared. It's going to be the same thing as in San Francisco.
Here's Edie crawling up a rock."
That's, I guess, what we're seeing. Frankly, I was given the assignment of Edie management that day, and I completely blew it. So
she's having a hard time getting up the rock.
She was pretty dizzy that day. Edie still was in her cups. She was really in control of things. This is long before. It was a process of disintegration that started on this day and ended. So this is April, whatever, Easter Sunday, April something, 1967. Boy, she's really carrying on, isn't she? And
is that anyone next to her? Is that
I think that's me, isn't it?
No, I think you were. I saw you in the foreground before.
Yeah. Anyway, so dating from this Easter Sunday until Memorial Day, this was the disintegration. Okay, and this was the moment, what I call, it's quite a ride. The film was half scripted, and so half the script, or whatever the story was for me, was half, the script was half done. And we never managed to shoot a complete sequence of any of the scripted scenes. So we got half of each scene of a half-written script.
There you are.
And here, this is in fact this is Memorial Day, 1967. This is out in Fort Lee, New Jersey. This is a house that Peter Max, the artist, had rented by that time. And the idea here was Chuck's idea was that this was a medium convention. What a medium convention is, I'm not quite sure. No one was, not even Chuck. But this is Edie at her, what I call the Icarus moment. This is exactly when she had flown to the sun and the wings had now started to melt. That was very apparent on this weekend. We spent the entire weekend. That's Bob Thurman right there with Mario.
And then that was Nana with you, Nana Thurman.
Nana Thurman was in one of those shots. She's coming up again. And Bob Thurman, of course, is now the professor of Tibetan Buddhism at Columbia. And they're still married, and they have a daughter named Uma.
Yeah.
As well as several other children.
The resemblance is pretty striking.
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary. There's a lot of footage of Nana. That's Chuck, right there. Alan.
How did Allen Ginsberg get involved?
Alan would chant at just about any event that he felt was worthy of his chanting prowess. He was basically coming out to chant for the city to not fall off the Rock of Manhattan. But he would chant at any given occasion. He felt strongly about it. That's Pat Hartley. Mm-hmm. She's around Los Angeles now. She was at the AFI a couple years ago. But Alan was very generous with his time. That's Michael Maslansky. He founded. He was a PR person. He founded a firm called PMK. Well, he died a couple of years ago. This house was a Victorian era, kind of a rambling, shambling, a hippie commune type place. Peter Max, as I say, had the house.
And these are Betsy Johnson.
Yeah, these are all the mediums who had gathered from all over the world, and Betsy costumed them up. She worked for weeks and weeks and weeks to do these amazing creations, and especially the one that she created for Alan. As you can see, I was young and slim. This is Astro. Gabrielle Beelzebub is his name, I think. Super Surfer is that one. Just characters that were all around. I mean, there's no actors involved in any of this. Just whoever was around Max's and.
There you are again.
Yeah.
Coming back up.
Amazing house. I mean, we shot some bizarre material in this house. Not much of it could fit into the film. And this collection of mediums, these creatures. I guess it was supposed to be in Chuck's mind. They were youth had come off a flying saucer, and were gathered to send some kind of like media message, McLuhan-esque media message. It's all this word game that's spawned by amphetamine, skin popping amphetamine on a daily basis. It doesn't really pretend well for the creation of a story. Alan, of course, was very. Excuse me.
Was he ringing bells?
Well, Alan's chanting his Hurry Home, which he would chant at any time.
Okay, now who's this?
This is Dr. Roberts. His name is Charlie Backus. He used to be a fabric designer. Then about a year after the film kind of disintegrated, he shaved his head, became a Hare Krishna, became Bhavananda, second in command of the Hare Krishna. Right now he's playing Dr. Roberts, who is really one of the vitamin doctors around town. There's a scene in the film, and he was out here at the airport to greet all these various so-called medium creatures that were coming for what you saw as the medium convention.
And this is a church?
This is just a church that's out at the airport. Yeah, there's a Presbyterian chapel, I believe, or something like that. He seems quite smug.
Yeah, it is great.
Dr. Robert. I suppose that was supposed to be a reverend, but who knows? I don't think anyone really had any clear. This was my samurai period. There was a theater down on 45th Street in Broadway called the Toho 45th Street. So I'd go there every week and see all the Kurosawa and the genre samurai films, and I really got into kendo and stuff like that.
And this is your apartment?
Yeah, this is 336 East 43rd Street. It was a two-floor a duplex with a little garden behind it, and it's really a very spacious place. Right, it's a brownstone in Tudor City, a block up from between the Ford Foundation was being built on the west side of the apartment, and then there was the United Nations on the right below it. But that's Nana again, and so I guess in the story, what was intended is that we were all living at this apartment, which in fact was true. Everybody except for Nana was living at this apartment. I was paying the rent, but everyone was living.
Who's poking in their head?
Oh, that was actually that loft up there is where Genevieve Charbin lived. She built that for herself. She could have privacy in this zoo. That was my home. And that coming out of there is Kjell Rostad about to climb down. He's a Norwegian cameraman who was worked with John, and he and John shot the thing together, shot everything together. And that's buried at Prendergast, an ex-male model who hooked up with Chuck later to do Rainbow Bridge.
On the couch there, you mean?
Yeah. Remember Rainbow Bridge, the thing with Jimi Hendrix? Did you ever hear of that? It wasn't much of a...
What's that artwork there, the spinning...
Oh, that's a hypnotist's wheel. I found it in a junk shop. And this is before I had my blow-up furniture, I guess. And this is the kitchen. This is actually the reverse angle of the couch. This is what I call my Vermeer kitchen, because it looked like something out of Vermeer to Delft. Great light came in from the window behind where the camera is. That was the garden.
Can you remember what's being
I don't
discussed?
think anyone can remember what was being discussed while it was being discussed. I mean, didn't you point out something about this?
Well, I noticed the hit you're taking here, you're holding it in for a good long time.
How long is that?
I don't know. Well, there you go. But you don't exhale for like another 3 minutes.
You're kidding.
Watch, just watch. You're still inhaling.
I'm still inhaling. Well, I had
passing
lung
around.
cancer in 1997, so I guess we now know why.
You still have not exhaled.
I haven't exhaled. I just handed
You
Paul
did a little mini
a little.
exhale. Here you go. Now you exhale.
Okay, fine.
And
Exhale.
right back again.
And right back in. I just had handed Paul the little tin of cocaine that sort of motivates the product. Here is Shell Rostad.
Okay, this is supposed to be.
This is now the garden.
But
Yeah.
they were supposed to be brother
Yeah,
and
this was
sister.
the Shell Rostad and Nena von Schlebrugge, now Nena Thurman, were playing an incestuous Swedish brother and sister team. It was a subplot in the unfinished script. A lot of those scenes actually were shot, but since the subplot itself was never shot in its entirety, none of them really were able to be put in anywhere. So I felt very bad about that because we did a lot of beautiful material with Nena, and she was extremely graceful and gracious, and the one real person in the entire gaggle, Shell too, of the crowd that was involved.
Now, where's
This is a discotheque. I don't remember. I just remember it's somewhere around 50th Street in Lexington.
And there you are again.
Oh my God!
Making
I
your
could actually
entrance?
move that fast. Not now.
And then
Just goes to show you, or shows to go you.
and these people are just acting the rest of them.
I
are
don't know who
extras,
these
or-
people. I don't recognize anyone at this table except for Barry there. Barry
What's do you remember
Prendergast.
what this conversation is? You're telling.
Well, obviously, we're supposed to be mouthing some kind of like defiant elk, ground pawing confrontation. These are actual go-go girls. I remember that was Genevieve Charbin, who co-wrote the unfinished script with Chuck.
who just did that? The
Yeah,
slate?
she was Slate. Yeah, and Genevieve and Chuck were a team. They dated back from My Hustler, Andy's film My Hustler. She was actually the only female presence in My Hustler.
Oh,
if you ever saw
okay.
that film.
Now, where'd the monkey come
Well, that was
from?
my monkey. You know, these girls were actually from the Peppermint Lounge, I believe. We went over and asked them if they wanted to be in a film, and they were all dancing that night. And so they came over the next morning, and
You gave
they,
one a monkey, and
this is Mario. His name is Gabriel Lampa. He was a male model, Argentine, actually playing himself in all his attitudes. Again, he wasn't really part of the world that the center crowd was. He just was someone who we pulled in to play himself as a kind of like an outsider. This is in the fantasy room of the head medium. This played by Gabriel Beelzebub. Astro was the character's name, and Edie is. I have no idea what she's mouthing here. These were these inane lines that have to do with the subplot of something or other that was never.
Did any of these scenes end up in the film?
Nothing.
None.
There's just none of them made any sense about anything. I mean, the only thing that ended up in the film, black and white wise, was anything that related to Edie as a human being that wasn't besotted with this toy plot that Chuck said really wasn't important, and in fact he made sure it wasn't. I actually did all these sets, so I drew them all myself.
You drew this.
Yeah, Chuck was into astrology, and so he said we had to have all the astrological symbols. So I just painted the floor with them and drew a big hand, which I found. I statted it up from a book and just drew it on the wall.
Oh, looks great.
This is Astro. He's the medium, and he's talking to Edie about something or other. Nothing I can remember that really meant a hill of beans, but it's gorgeous stuff. Look at her. She really was into her makeup, wasn't she?
Okay.
She was an artist at it. This is paraphernalia.
This is where
Betsy
Betsy Johnson.
Yeah,
worked.
this was actually the downtown shop. I remember from watching Betsy's interview that actually the original paraphernalia was uptown Madison Avenue, right next to Without So Soon. This one was down on Greenwich Avenue. That's where we shot. This was their village branch, but it was the same thing. There's Nana. Yeah.
God, the resemblance to Uma is
Astounding,
amazing.
yeah. And what was happening, I remember there was a plot point in this scene where the girls were shoplifting, but and getting caught, but not much more than that.
Yeah, because
I
in the
remember.
film, she comes back with packages.
Yeah.
But that's all you see of that.
Yeah.
That's it.
This apartment is actually quite astounding. This, I believe, was in Chelsea in the 20s. The woman who owned this house, so it was actually a brownstone. It was a halfway house. She rented rooms to people who needed to, prepare to go back into the world. For what purpose, I don't know, but I know it was a halfway house. I don't remember her name, but I know that she was the original. She was Auntie Mame. Whoever wrote Auntie Mame, I just don't know the name. This was his Aunt Mame, the woman who owned the house. And I remember her she was in her 80s or 90s. She was very frail, but very defiant. And she was very worried about the floors. And about scratching the floors. Anything scratching the floors, the cameras. Of course, this is baby Jane Holzer, who is having a bitch fight with Edie over something or other. Who's ruling the roost here at Astros. This was this medium, astrologer, palm reader. This is, of course, now the only footage that exists of at least 35 millimeter footage. I don't know of any 16, but to my knowledge, this is the only motion picture footage that exists of Max's Kansas City, the renowned, legendary, unforgettable Max's Kansas City, which somehow, when I found this footage in 1998, I was astounded to see. It's like when you go back to the childhood house when you were like 3 years old, and you remember it as being so huge, and you come back when you're in your adulthood, and it's actually not as big as you thought. And Max is much smaller than I imagined it was, because in my mind it was so gigantic. I mean, it was such a throbbing memory.
And here's the back room.
This is the back room, and to the right, which we don't quite see, is the round table where Andy held court every night from midnight till dawn. And we, the Chow crowd, always sat across the room in a diagonal, so exactly where you see Paul America and Viva in the corner there. That would be where we sit and glare, and that's Bridget, I think, with her back to the camera. Mickey Ruskin, who owned Max's, this is Viva, Susan Hoffman. That's Ara Gallant, who's a designer, stylist. Timmy there, I'm married to, who now? That's Richie Berlin. Richie Berlin is Bridget's sister. Paul America. His real name is Paul Johnson. Very, very interesting character.
You're saying the owner of Max's? The owner of Max's?
Yeah, he gave us a place. He shut down at midnight and gave us a place, so we had to just basically try to fill the tables with our crowd and hanger-ons and so forth, so we could shoot. The reason no one ever shot footage in here is because all the light was red. I mean, you were in a complete, almost like infrared environment. And if I remember correctly, John used, this is Angus McDonald, he was our grip, he's posing as Andy because he had natural silver hair. You had to use ASA 2000, which is like space film, and push it in order to be able to get an image. I mean, that we're in an environment that's totally red, and it looks as natural light as you see it. Is really extraordinary. And John really knew how to light. And of course, coming up here is one of the more important figures in the Ciao Manhattan saga, who's no longer with us, who I miss very much, is Gino Pizzerchio. He's coming in. That's Gino right there to the far right with the glasses. Gino did all the music for Ciao. He was the original Moog synthesizer artiste. Bob Margoliff had gotten Robert Moog's first demonstrator into a studio, and Gino kicked Moish out of the studio and just locked himself in there and just held forth. This is Al Runes at the Ansonia Hotel on Broadway around 72nd or 74th Street, and there had been in the couple years before a happening, one of those art evenings, so-called happening at this health club, and Andy and Edie in the pool. I think you've seen shots of that, and so we went and recreated it, and of course it turned into a madness night. It was all night long, and there's tons of everyone was skin popping the amphetamine.
Who's that with the wine?
That's Chuck.
Okay.
Yeah, back to the camera. A lot of, and when they drained the swimming pool, they found like 100 syringes, in the drain, and then Edie doing her little exercises. Edie was remarkably strong and lithe and athletic because she rode horses all her life, so she had a very, very powerful little body. I mean, she really was a natural dancer. I mean, she was a picture of grace, even when she was on drugs. I mean, finally towards the end, she became very wobbly, but this is Edie and Viva. Yeah. This was actually before Viva did anything with Andy. She had not become Viva yet. She was still Susan Hoffman, who quite the raconteur at Max's. Edie and Jane Holzer did not like each other. Well, let's put it, Edie couldn't care less. Jane was, of course, Jane felt very upstaged by Edie and didn't like it one bit. So that remains to this day, I think, the same. Here's Bridget, one of the true geniuses of the Salon de Warhol. She used to paint Andy's silk screens during a whole period of time in the mid-late 60s. Time magazine finally exposed that. She and Gerard did a lot of Andy's work. Well, I mean, Andy kind of oversaw it, but why don't you, Bridget, why don't you just do it? This is Kamahachi on 46th Street between 5th and 6th. It's right around the block from where Margot's studio was. It was the very first sushi bar in New York. And we used to have sushi every day before anyone even imagined such a thing was possible. So it really was an appalling habit. I mean, if you're going to have raw fish, everyone thought you were out of your mind. It was like going to the gym back in 1966. I mean, you went to the gym and had raw fish, you really were a queer. I mean, something was wrong, But it was amazing. Mm-hmm. I can still taste it. Never been as good, has it?
And this is just more of the kind of footage of Paul and Edie just around town.
Yeah, Paul and Edie around town. Lots of footage. We have a total of about 36 hours, of which the most, besides the mediums arriving for the convention at the airport, the most common stuff is Paul and Edie around town. Mm-hmm. And there are some just exquisite pieces.
Where are these?
This is all Broadway.
Shot?
Broadway, just above Times Square. I can't identify. There was a Celanese building we went into, and they had a bunch of exhibitions in there. It's kind of like Futurama type exhibitions. It was very 60s. This was from 43rd Street. This is up in upstairs. But Paul and Edie, a lot of material. Some wonderful voiceover conversations recorded in Margot's studio between the two. They were having a thing. I mean, they were originally just posing and doing what we asked them to do in front of the camera, to be a couple in a film that they didn't quite, neither one of them had ever read or could understand anyway because it wasn't finished. But they eventually created their own little drama, which was quite interesting. And most of it doesn't occur in the dialogue of the movie, in the sync dialogue.
I like that scene right there where it just says America.
Oh yeah, and that's a great shot. Yeah. Great shot. That's a still. Again, these are the all off Times Square. But the voiceovers between Paul and Edie in the studio really revealed a lot about who they were and how they felt about each other. They had of course, drugs was the main factor that held them together. An amphetamine fetish at that time.
Yeah, this is the start of the.
Well, this is the beginning of the end. Yeah, this is Jane Holzer. Chuck wanted. Paul had it was his own car, a little Austin Healey Sprite. He was from Jersey, and he got it for graduation present from high school, and so he still had it. And Paul
he's supposed to pick her up.
Yeah, Chuck wanted Paul to pick her up or drop her off, both. He wasn't sure which it was going to be. So there were at least a dozen setups where he does each, and it became very much what exactly are we shooting was the question, and no one really knew, and everyone just kept shooting.
Here he's trying to drive
yeah,
it.
Paul was getting. Yeah, Paul's not happy about this.
It stopped.
Yeah, a lot of traffic interference, and it's frustrating to make a movie, especially if you don't really know what movie you're making or what you're supposed to do in any given shot. So I can understand Paul's frustration. Plus, he was pretty much at the end of his rope. And then the traffic kept climbing up. He just can't seem. But this is the last. You have to understand. This is after about 20 times of picking her up or dropping her off. So what exactly is the point? And
now.
So finally, he decided that enough was enough, and the actor took everything in his own hands and took off. And we didn't see him again. This was around May of 1967. Next time we saw him was in October of '68, over a year later, in Allegan, Michigan, the western part of the state. This is Bob Margoliouth now. He came out with us and
went to the jail.
To the jail where we recorded where we shot the scene of Paul in jail, and Bob Margoliouth took the sound and we just stuck him in there as a.
And what was Paul in jail for?
Well, he was in jail because his brother had a farm in Michigan, and he was busted for growing pot. And Paul was so wired from speed, they thought he was a Martian. They never even arraigned him; they just kept him there.
This
of course,
is now color footage.
Yeah, this is some of the few outtakes of the color because the color material was shot so tight. And this is Roger Vadim, the French director. He was actually someone who was fascinated from the time we were shooting the black and white. I used to have him. He was married with Jane Fonda at the time, and I used to work for Preminger, and I met them through that milieu. And when he and Jane broke up, he became fascinated with the thing. And his mother used to come to the shoot every day in the pool. And his mother
Vadim's mother?
Yeah, Madame Propi. This is the electroshock therapy scene, which we shot. This was actually the first thing we shot in color. And we shot this in Santa Barbara. This is the only thing we shot in Santa Barbara at all, except for the wedding, which was in the San Ynez Mountains.
And where was this equipment?
This was actually in a place called Daney's. It was a clinic. It was a private clinic where people could go in. It was like a halfway house, but they went in there for electroshock and stayed in a couple days after. This is Isabel Jewell, 103 movies, Lost Her Eyes and Gone with the Wind. She was the only professional actress or actor in the entire movie.
This is another outtake from the pool.
Yeah, this is the only angle of this. This is where Edie falls over. We didn't use this angle in the film. And she talks about her scars. All of this was scripted. Yeah, I know everything. Yeah, everything in the color is scripted. There are only a few spontaneous riffs in the film when she talks about her father and when he died, etc. And Wesley and her. Everything was real. I mean, but it was all scripted. The script became her life. So it's very strange when the movie was finished that it evolved into a lifestyle over 5 years. And so when the film was finished, so was the lifestyle.